The first 5 minutes of your presentation are by far the most important because your audience is making a decision. Am I going to be present or am I going to be engaged? You want them engaged. You got to show that you're relatable. You have to demonstrate your authority and you have to share your purpose. So relatable. I've had that exact same problem. I'm just like you, authority. And I solved that problem, purpose. And now I'm on a mission to help people just like you so you don't have to suffer the way I suffered. If you can do that in the first 5 minutes, you're going to have your audience paying attention to you, which is the most important thing.
All right, welcome everybody back to another episode of the Kronos Group Podcast. I am your host, Jerry Brazie. I've got a great guest with me here today, Danny Brassell. And he is a speaker, a trainer, a coach, an author. And if you've ever heard him speak, you will understand, just go to his YouTube. They call him the Jim Carrey with a PhD. Certainly he's got the energy and underneath of it, a lot of discipline and a way of thinking about how you communicate and how you lead and also how you tell a story. Spoken to more than 3,500 audiences around the world, has written 21 books and co-founded Well-Crafted Story, where he helps entrepreneurs and organizations turn their experience and their expertise into clear stories that actually move people to act. This resonated with me when I came across Danny and what he was doing. I've been trying to build this in my own life over time, so I'm really looking forward to this conversation. His big belief is that clarity and communication isn't just a marketing skill. It is the foundation for focus, productivity, influence, really peace of mind. When leaders see clearly, I know this from personal experience, everything gets easier. Danny, I appreciate you coming on the podcast. How are you, sir?
Fantastic. Thanks so much for having me, Jerry. More importantly, thanks for spreading some joy in the world. We need a lot more of you.
I appreciate that, and that is exactly what we are trying to do. Let's go back just to give everybody an idea of who you are and what you're about. We'll get into your professional life and what you're doing these days. Give us a little idea of where you come from and where you are that brought you where you are today.
Well, Jerry, if I was going to write an autobiography, it would probably be called Pivots because I feel like I've already lived 9 lives. 30 years ago, I was a journalist covering President Bush Sr. in the 1992 presidential election. I loved my job. I got to meet every editor of every major daily, and one editor offered me the city beat for $16,500 a year. Meanwhile, a friend told me they were hiring teachers in South Central Los Angeles for $25,000 a year. So I became a teacher for the noblest of reasons, Jerry, for the high pay. And ironically, I fell in love with teaching. I've taught all age levels from preschoolers all the way up to rocket scientists. I can make that claim because I used to teach English as a second language to engineering students at the University of Southern California. And in 2005, my wife and I attended a real estate seminar, which turned out to be a scam, and we lost everything financially. And I could give you the woe is me story, but I'm a positive person. I learned a lot from that experience. First of all, I learned that my wife is my soulmate. I put her through the ringer and she stood right by me. She's an incredible human being. Second of all, I learned that money's not everything because you can lose money just like that. Third, I try not to judge other people because if I was somebody who saw what I had done, I would have said, well, you deserve that. But now I realize unless you know everything about a person, you really don't know anything about a person. Fourth, I became a Christian, which I'm always embarrassed to confess. It took a catastrophe, but the more I read the Bible, I realize I'm not the first screw up to find Jesus. And fifth, and probably most applicable to your audience, is I didn't want to file for bankruptcy. And my accountant said, well, you have to earn this much more money this year. And so I started speaking on the side, and I hit that number right on the number. Well, then the next year, Jerry, he gave me a much higher number, and I hit that number right on the number. So in year 3, I thought, well, maybe I should set a higher number. And basically, during one of the worst economic downturns in American history, I was able to build up a highly lucrative speaking business, which eventually attracted the attention of some pretty famous people and companies who asked me to coach them. And I have to be honest, I resisted for a long time because you need to know this about me. I'm obsessive compulsive. I will not let you fail. I will be on your back, holding you accountable until you succeed. Well, now that I work primarily with entrepreneurs and executives and business owners, I find that they're highly motivated. They do the work, and it's probably been the most gratifying thing I've ever done. So you can take me down any road you choose, my friend.
I was going to say, you kind of beat me to it there right at the end as you were saying you kind of who you are. I was like, wait a minute, you sound like an entrepreneur. Having been one since I was 28 years old, I've always said that it's not for everybody, and we are a rare breed, and people who, I think social media has kind of ruined the idea of what an entrepreneur is. I think it has undervalued the risk and the sacrifice and the work that it takes to put something like that in place and to make it a success. It's very, very difficult to do. So as you were describing that, you went right to now you're working with people who essentially are not unlike you.
Yeah. Yeah. Amen to all of that. I completely agree. Entrepreneurs are in the trenches. Everybody always sees the success. I love that quote by Max Lebchen. He says, "My first company was a total bust. My second one wasn't much better. My third one, we started to get it right. Number 4 almost wasn't a failure. Number 5 was PayPal." Well, if it only takes you 5 tries to get to $1 billion company, you're doing all right.
Right, you're doing all right. So these people that you work with a lot of smart people, some of whom I'm assuming we would know of, but I'm guessing the majority of them are people just like me. I talk to entrepreneurs all the time, and I tell them that your problems are not your problems. Your problems, every other entrepreneur for the most part, has similar problems. Throughout my life, having talked to, at this point, thousands of entrepreneurs, it seems like we all think that we are the only ones with these issues, and so then we stay quiet about it. But when you get in mixed company with other entrepreneurs, you quickly realize that many of us suffer from the same issues. There's a lot of power in that, but that has been my experience. What's your thought on that?
It's such a great point, Jerry. It's one of the first things I tell clients is, hey, stop talking about your successes when you're speaking. Start talking about your failures, because not everybody in your audience has succeeded, but they've all failed. And the more you share your own failures, the more your audience is going to see themselves in you. And that's ultimately the whole point of a presentation, is how do you connect with that audience to get them to take that next step with you?
So when we're talking about an audience and talking to them and messaging, I'm a big fan of Donald Miller. And he's a guy, again, down here in this part of the world where I live. And one of the things that resonated in doing my research with you, and also that resonates or sounded like what he is advocating for, which is bringing that message in a lot tighter. The messages from people who don't know how to deliver it can be scattered. And so it sounds like the first thing that needs to be fixed is simply clarity. Tell an almost simpler story by keeping it clearer, and then it will scale from there. Would you say that's true?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, Donald's fantastic. Anybody should work with him. StoryBrand is a wonderful company. I once texted him that I was annoyed because 6 different people gave me his book for Christmas. And he immediately, the next day, he'd FedEx me a copy that's autographed. Here's number 7. And I was like, oh, gosh.
That's great.
But he's completely right. I mean, the process that I have 2 co-founders for Well Crafted, Coach Jimmy Hayes Nelson and Dave Ward. I call us the professor, the performer, and the producer, because my background's academia. Coach Jimmy was a Broadway actor, and Dave's an attorney. And so you have to forgive me. Everything I do either rhymes or it's alliterative. And so we came up with our 5 C's process, and the 5 C's are clarity, connect, content, call to action, and close. And that first C that you're talking about, clarity, there are 2 questions I always ask clients. If you can answer these questions, you're in good shape. And if you cannot, you're going to have a tough time creating a powerful presentation on stage. And you'd be amazed, Jerry, 95% of the people I work with cannot answer one or both of these questions in a concise manner. Those 2 questions are, who is your audience and what is the problem that you solve? If you can answer those 2 questions, you're in pretty good shape. If not, you're going to struggle.
So when you talk about solving or answering a question or solving a problem, are we talking about, does it need to be something in the industry? Let's say if I'm talking to a group of entrepreneurs, or is it enough to have something motivational or something maybe that they might learn from or they might be inspired by, but doesn't necessarily help them in their day-to-day?
There's a difference between a good presentation and an outstanding presentation, Jerry. A good presentation tells stories. An excellent presentation tells stories with intent. To me, the most powerful presentations take you to an end game. And so you have to understand what your call to action is. Now, it can be an unpaid call to action, like if I'm working with a politician, vote for me, or working with a podcast host, hey, subscribe to my podcast. More typically, I'm working with people that it's a paid offer, like buy my product or invest in my coaching program. But the only way I measure our success from stage isn't, did you get a standing ovation, or do people think you're a great speaker? That's great. I love that if you get that kind of feedback. But the only way I measure your effectiveness is how many people in that audience decided to take that next step with you. That's ultimately what we're trying to do as entrepreneurs.
I go back to your story, and I want to dig into that a little bit more, but I have a question off of it, of your real estate experience going to the seminar. I decided towards the end of last year, I've been an entrepreneur my entire life. I started doing these podcasts a few years ago, and I've just doubled down on it here this year, podcasting. I started a new peer-to-peer group along the other businesses that I have. And so I'm learning how this works. And one of the things I said I'm going to do this year, and I put this out publicly, is I'm going to get on a stage and speak. I have no idea how to do that, how to even approach that, where that would come from. But along those lines, in even doing a tiny amount of research, my social feeds have been inundated with every expert, every seminar, every outfit, every business that wants to, immediately place me, take my money and place me somewhere. And so when you said that about the seminar that you took relative to real estate, just in my own experience here over the last couple of months, as I made this decision, I'm suspect of almost everyone. So that means even the good ones, I'm suspect of, right? Because there's clearly so many out there just trying to separate someone from their money. So with that being said, what's your response to that? How do we filter that out?
Yeah, I think it's a genuine concern. There's a ton of shysters out there. It drives me nuts when, I was working with a woman a couple of months ago, and she said, I want to be a $10,000 an hour speaker. And so the question I had for her is, well, do you look like a $10,000 an hour speaker? And she's like, what do you mean? I'm like, do you have a website? She's like, no. Do you have a speaking reel? No. Do you have video testimonials from past clients? No. Do you have a brochure? No. So here's my question again. Do you think that you're a $10,000 an hour speaker? I mean, and I'm not telling her that she can't become that, but you don't become a professional football player overnight. You have to work at it. And these people that just think, oh, you just go on stage. I'm like, yeah, if you were on season 48 of Survivor, yeah, there's people that are going to pay you $15,000 to go on stage so you can talk about eating worms. But if you want to be a really good speaker, there's really only two ways, Jerry, that you can get. First of all, I commend you for having this podcast. This is a stage, by the way, and this is a fantastic forum for you. But there's only two ways you get better at speaking, in my opinion. First of all, you got to watch lots of different speakers. I mean, I watch 10 speakers a day. I watch politicians. I watch televangelists. I watch comedians. I watch them in front of big groups, in front of small groups, in front of men, in front of women. Here, I'll give you and your audience a ninja strategy. I watch a lot of televised award shows. And the reason is when the person wins the Academy Award, they only have 45 seconds to connect with their audience. I want to see how they use their time. Now, most people waste their time. They get up there, they're like, I want to thank God, I want to thank the Academy. It's stupid. Nobody's paying attention. But every now and then a person nails it. So a few years ago, there was a gentleman by the name of Joe Walker who won the Academy Award for Best Film Editing. Now, this is the Academy Awards. All the important people are in the front of the room, the actors. And you can tell the camera's scanning. They're not paying attention. This is editing. Who cares? And Joe Walker gets on stage. He's British. He speaks very slowly and deliberately. He says, a lot of people don't know this, but when phrased properly, the term Academy Award nominee can be used as an insult. Well, now the camera scans the crowd. You see everybody leaning in like, what's he talking about? He says, for example, yesterday I got in an argument with my 17-year-old daughter, and she said, well, Academy Award nominee Joe Walker. All of a sudden you see everybody laughing hysterically. He gets off stage. Denzel Washington wants to meet him. Sandra Bullock wants to meet him. Brad Pitt wants to meet him. Time magazine said he was one of the highlights of the Academy Awards. Well done, Joe Walker. That's how you connect with an audience. So the first way you get better at speaking is watching other speakers. The second way you get better at speaking, I've had lots of wonderful coaches and mentors throughout my career. One of them was a guy by the name of Jim Rohn, and Jim used to say, you can't pay other people to do your push-ups. Translation, you got to go out there and do the reps. I mean, even the smallest towns in America have service organizations like Lions Club, Rotary Club, Kiwanis Club, Optimus Club. There's schools, there's churches, synagogues, temples, chambers of commerce. There's podcasts. My co-founder, Jimmy, it drives him nuts that I do about 10 to 12 podcasts every single week. He's like, why are you doing that? And I'm like, I do it for two reasons. First of all, it gives me reps. You already asked me a couple of questions that Nobody's asked me before. So I came up with a response, and now I'm calculating in my head, how do I make that response better for the next time? The second thing, this drives Jimmy nuts. He says, only one person listens to that podcast. And this is a very important teaching point for everybody listening. I don't care how many people are in the audience. I just care who's in the audience. You only have one person paying attention to you, and it's Joe Rogan. That's not a bad person to be paying attention to you. So my advice to you is skip all the charlatans, keep on doing your podcast. This is excellent practice for you. And then if you want to go out there on an actual physical stage, I mean, there's plenty of, one of the ways I grew my business, when I first started speaking, I was speaking for free like crazy, but I've never spoken for free without a letter of agreement. Every organization I work with, I have a letter of agreement. And so when I first started speaking, my letter of agreement would say, I will waive my $5,000 an hour fee. Jerry, I wasn't making $5,000 an hour, but they don't know that. I will waive my fee in exchange for, and I had 10 items on the list. 1, a video testimonial from your organization's president. 2, 3 written testimonials from people in the audience. 3, if you're filming me, I want a copy of the video. 4, if your organization has a monthly newsletter, I want to write a column in it for the next year. 5, give me referrals to 2 other organizations that could benefit from me. I don't remember all 10 of them. I was amazed. Everybody I spoke for did at least one of those things, and several of them did all 10. And that's how I was able to build up my speaking so quickly, because I built up the credibility. I had the video testimonials. I had video. I had referrals to other organizations. And you could do the exact same path. I guarantee you in Franklin, Tennessee, just in the Nashville area alone, there's got to be at least 10 Rotary Club chapters there. And think about it. These service clubs, you have no idea who's in that audience. It's usually 15 to 20 civic leaders. You'll have bankers, a couple of insurance agents, chief of police. You have no idea what kind of contacts those people. I'll give you another. I'm sorry, I'm speaking a lot here, Jerry, but I'll give you another example.
No, please go.
When
You're the guest.
When I first started speaking, I had 2 speakers bureaus that I worked for, and I would get paid about $700 a day for a full day presentation. Well, my local library, they asked me if I would do a free presentation. And I said, sure. They're like, we're going to get 500 people. 4 people showed up, Jerry. 2 of them were my realtors. Right. The other 2 was a Hispanic couple that didn't speak a word of English. Well, I believe in giving 110%, so I did as much in Spanish as possible. We all had a fun time, a lot of laughs. A week later, I get a call. Turns out the Hispanic woman was taking English classes at the Adult Literacy Center. She recommended me to do a 45-minute keynote presentation for $4,000, which at that time was 6 times my speaking fee. That made me have a totally different mindset with audiences. I have no idea the resources available to me in that audience. So every time you got to hit a home run.
Yeah, that's a great answer, and I appreciate that, because it becomes almost like you can't look away from it, because it comes at you so fast. But the more you see it, the more that you think, well, this can't be accurate. There has to be a way other people did this. Couldn't have all have gone through these ways, or haven't gone through buying in. It seemed like a shortcut to me. And so what you just explained to me is inherently, this is the way propaganda works. It just drives me insane. Inherently, I knew the answer was going to be work your ass off the way you just described it, right? But in my head, I'm like, well, maybe there's some piece of truth to this, that I can jump through a couple of hoops and make that happen, knowing full well that that's not reality.
I'll sell you 3 beans.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Let's go back to the real estate for a minute. That was interesting, and I think that'll resonate with my audience for not unlike the reasons that we just talked about just now, relative to me getting inundated with all of these offers. The seminars of the world, the social media generally for me has been something that I tell everybody to take almost with a grain of salt. About 85% of what I see based on, my 25, 30 years as an entrepreneur, a good portion of what I see just isn't true, or, it's got a kernel of truth and the rest of it is a bunch of BS. And so hearing you go to that seminar the way that it worked out, that story resonates with me on multiple levels, having seen that same thing take place more than one time. And again, with my experience, I've always been able to say, guys, that's not really, I know it sounds good, but that's not really how it works. Speaking, I know it sounds good, but that's not how it works. Real estate, setting up a business, 10-minute work weeks, and you too can drive a Lamborghini in the south of France, all of those sorts of things. How, in your experience, having gone through that and having it have taken so much of your money, there must have been something that, had you been paying attention to it, it would have gone off in your head, especially now with all of your experience, to say, man, I kind of suckered my way into that. How does somebody avoid that? And was there something specific all those years ago?
I don't know if you can avoid it, and I don't know if you should, because that's how we grow, is through adversity. I don't look in the rearview mirror. I look at the windshield, and I made a decision long ago, Jerry, that I'm going to trust people. And 90% of the time, people are going to be good to me, and 10% of the time, people are going to screw me over. And I'm just going to have to deal with that. They have to live with that. I have no idea why a person, it's kind of like Barry Bonds. Barry Bonds was such a great baseball player. I'm like, why did you decide to cheat? Like, there's no honor in that. Who cares if you have the record, if you cheated to get the record? I just don't. And I love what you were talking about with social media. I was on a podcast earlier today, and I was equating social media. Have you ever gone on the Haunted Mansion ride at Disneyland, Jerry?
Yeah, sure.
I love it because at the very beginning, you're in this room and you see all these paintings of happy people, and then the floor starts to go down, and it turns out all the happy people are actually like they're about to be eaten by a tiger, or they're in flames or whatever. I'm like, that's what social media is. It gives you it gives you one perspective, but it doesn't really tell you the whole story. So and you look at these people that make these claims, but again, to each his own. So again, the long-winded answer to your question is, I don't know if we should actually avoid adversity. I can tell you that every bad thing that's ever happened to me opened up a door to all kinds of great things that happened to me.
I think life is full of enough adversity, especially in the entrepreneurial space, that what was critical for me when I was 30. First company I started, I was 28 years old. I did $4 million. The second year I did 8, then I did 12, and then I did 14. And I figured something out, Danny, and that was, I was really good at selling.
Yeah.
What I wasn't very good at was selling profitably. So it took me a while to figure out how to do that, and part of that came from a peer-to-peer group that I had joined at the time. I'd gotten some write-up in the newspaper because the business was doing so well, and a guy came, and he was a Fortune 500 CEO, and he approached me and he said, "Hey, you need to come be in this group, and we can teach you something. It's going to be 5 hours one day a month." And I was like, "You don't understand. I'm working 18 hours a day trying to keep this thing going. I can't afford the time." And he said, "No, you can't afford not to spend the time." And the second piece of advice he gave me, he then said, it's going to be, I don't remember how much it was, $600 a month or something. I said, I'm working at night refereeing basketball games, trying to pay the bills, figuring out this business thing. He said, "Yeah, you can't afford not to." And it was some of the best advice. It was certainly the best sales pitch I had ever heard, because it drew me in right away. And that group helped me avoid more pitfalls. I didn't avoid pitfalls. I've had 7-figure mistakes. I've made fortunes, and I have freaking lost fortunes at the same time. And so I made enough of my own mistakes, but they helped me either get out of those mistakes, but more importantly, they taught me how to do things. I was 30, 31 years old. They were all in their 50s. They had 20 years of experience, and I was able to lean on them and get that experience at the same time, going through, all of the travails that go along with building a company that, again, went on to do hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue.
Yeah, I hope everybody in your audience just listened to all those points you just made, because they're right on. I mean, I was smart enough to invest in masterminds and coaching programs. I probably spend 6 figures a year on coaches still to this day, because you look at Tiger Woods at his peak as the greatest golfer ever to golf. He was the only golfer ever to have all 4 major trophies at the same time. And what did Tiger Woods do? He had a swing coach. He had a mental coach. He had a diet coach. Maybe he should have hired a relationship coach, but that's a whole other story. But he understood the value of that. I mean, similar to you, I was in a mastermind, and I'm sitting at a table with 8 billionaires, and I said, "Oh, I'm at the wrong table." And they're like, No, stay here, Danny. They're like, "You always give 10 ideas, and 9 of them are crazy, and the other one makes us millions." And it was because of those guys, because I was like you, it's all these 50-year-old guys, and I'm here with I'm the 30-year-old teacher. And one of the guys had a very profitable company, and he's like, Danny, I want you to train my sales force. I want you to motivate them. And I'm like, I don't know if I'm qualified to motivate a sales force. And he looked at me like I was an idiot. He's like, Danny, if you can motivate inner city teenage boys to read Shakespeare, I'm pretty sure you can motivate my sales team.
Yeah,
He did me a
right.
huge favor, Jerry, because he got me thinking bigger. I'm like, oh, I never thought of it that way. And that's a lot of it. And, people that pay attention. I mean, when you have to put that kind of money in, when you're putting it on the credit card, you're like, I don't even know if I have enough of this. And I don't want to tell my wife I'm doing this. It means you're burning the boats. You gotta produce some results, and you really pay attention. And I can't tell. I commend you so much on that. I love people, And then the other thing, this goes back to what we were talking about. Here we are talking about adversity and everything. I was speaking at an event a couple of months ago, and the first two speakers, one of their key points was to enjoy the journey. I guess I was just feeling facetious that day. So I get up on stage. I'm like, you ever notice the people who say enjoy the journey have already succeeded? I mean,
Yeah.
when you're like starving and can't pay your rent, or you're like, man, I'm really enjoying this. Nobody enjoys the journey. You can learn from the journey, but that's usually in hindsight. When you're in it, it's stressful. But, stress, sometimes you need a little kick in the butt to get you to accomplish things you never thought you were capable of.
I was on a podcast earlier today with a guy out of Chicago, and this absolutely exact same thing came up where I said that it seems like the guys who get into the 100 millionaire and the billionaire class that are social media influencers have forgotten how hard it is to start up and get going, because so much of their advice, as again, someone who has known hundreds of guys who have started from scratch and what it takes to start a business from scratch and become a millionaire and make it successful, I've never heard of the stories these guys tell about how we're supposed to act or supposed to behave or all of those things. How you run your business, don't work on your business, or don't work in your business, work on your business. All of these things, and it's just you sitting there trying to sell something and then, get it out into the world, and the amount of effort and energy that takes. I've never recognized the way that the super rich guys who have made it describe what we should be doing to get our businesses going.
Yeah, the way I say it is, it's great if you have a positive mindset and a skill set, but you need to get off your asset.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I like that a lot. The other thing that you said there, and I've admitted this many times, I suffer from this. I come from my quick background. When I was 17 years old, I was living with hookers and heroin addicts in a $25 a week flop house. I got my first job as an 11-year-old paying taxes. Since 1980, I've never not paid taxes. I come from abject poverty with 8 brothers and sisters, been shot, stabbed, beaten within an inch of my life. Started my own company at 28, failed the first one, went back to all of my customers after the finance guys fell through on my first deal, and on my second deal at 29, I went 17 days later after they fired me. I went out to all of my customers and said, hey, you know how I just moved you from one company to another one? I got to do it again, and I need you to prepay me because I don't have financing. I generated banks and title companies $245,000 a month in revenue to get that company started. That's the one that went on to do $4, $8, $12, and $14 million a year. I tell you that to say, through all of that, ups and downs, lost fortunes and made fortunes. I've been married for 28 years. I have 3 fantastic grown kids. I'm a lucky man. And to this day, whenever I give advice or I'm talking to somebody about what life might look like, young men in particular, and the importance of having kids and what children meant to me when I had my first one at 28, I have imposter syndrome. So whenever even after I've achieved what I've achieved and escaped the things that I've escaped and done the things that I've done, when I think about getting up and telling my story or trying to tell a story, to use what you do for a living, I have this in the back of my mind. Who in the hell is going to listen to me? I have imposter syndrome. I didn't know what that was 5-6 months ago. I hadn't thought about it. I talked to a friend of mine who brought the word up, and now I talk about it all of the time. So when you kind of alluding to that, give me your thoughts on that. How prevalent is that, and how does somebody overcome that? I'm going to assume there's more people like me.
Yeah, most people are like, most of the people I work with, by the way, they don't want to be speakers. They're just business people that want to grow their company. And I believe that speaking is the fastest way to grow your company. I'll give you this is an exercise everybody in the audience can do. It's later on, Jerry, I want you to sit in a comfortable chair with a pen and paper, libation of choice. And for an hour, I want you to write down every story that's ever happened to you. And I don't mean the entire story. I just mean triggers, like the time I locked myself out of the car in front of Costco, the time Dad spilt mustard on his tie at that fancy restaurant. In an hour, you'll find you can come up with several hundred stories like this. So that's the first part of the exercise. The second part of the exercise is then I want you to think about, well, what's this story really about? Oh, this is a story about never giving up. Oh, this is a story about loyalty. Oh, this is a story about paying attention to opportunity. On my computer, I have hundreds of files with literally tens of thousands of stories. So when I'm putting together a presentation and I want my audience to feel a certain emotion, I actually have stories to pull from that. You have so many extraordinary stories, and that's great. But for the people listening out there, the ordinary stories are actually the most powerful stories. That's why failure is something that we can all connect with. I have a gentleman I'm working with right now from Saudi Arabia. He's climbed the highest peak on all 7 continents. He swam with sharks in Madagascar. He did the Iditarod in Alaska. And I look at him like, nobody can relate to you. Nobody in your audience has climbed Mount Everest. But everybody in your audience peed their pants when they were in first grade. That's a connected story,
Right.
And that's what you could do. Like, you can talk about that adversity, and then just a simple technique that Jimmy and I teach people to do. So Jimmy, he lost over 100 pounds, and he would say, hey, for me, my adversity was losing 100 pounds. For you, maybe it was growing up in abject poverty, or maybe it's having cancer, or having an unsupportive role model or something. That's what you do to connect with people. Is, well, what do you and I have? And this is why when I work with politicians, I always, first of all, I always give politicians a hard time when I work with them. I'm like, you ever notice that nobody running for president ever grew up middle class? They all grew up in a log cabin. And there's a reason they say that, because they're trying to connect with the masses. I mean, there's a reason, and whenever I give a politician as an example, it has nothing to do with the politics. It's just the communication style. But you look at President Reagan. President Reagan was a millionaire from Bel Air, California, but he communicated in a way that connected with auto workers in Detroit, Michigan, who are like, oh, I could have a beer with that guy. Ooh, that's power. That's power when you can connect with people. So the people in your audience that are ruining, oh, I don't know if I can do this. I have imposter syndrome. I have a client who's one of the top speakers on the planet. He doesn't have a high school degree. He has no corporate experience, and yet people pay him 7 figures to speak. That's an imposter. He has no credentials whatsoever. And that's what's great. What he does have is the ability to connect with people. You might not be able to connect with people with your business making $8 million, but where you connected with me, Jerry, was when you were talking about, oh my gosh, I need you to switch over to this other company and I need you to pay me right. I mean, oh, I understand that. You had me in the room right there. I'm like, ooh, that's where he's connecting with me. And now I see you as successful, which is great. But you've let me in and shown me, hey, when you were talking about that, how a lot of these big gurus, they forget where they came from. There was an episode of 30 Rock years ago with Tracy Morgan, and he's like, man, I don't seem to be connecting with my audience with my stand-up routine, because he's wealthy now, and they show him doing his stand-up. He's like, don't you hate it when your personal chef screws up your foie gras? It's like, exactly. People can't relate that, but people can relate to, do I have enough money to buy the blue box of macaroni and cheese, or do I have to go for the white box of macaroni? And people remember, oh, wait a sec, that's a person that's struggling. This is what I love about American audiences. Americans always root for the underdog. We like rooting for that person. And that's part of it. But really, and Donald will say this, Donald Miller with Story Brand, he'll say your role when you're on stage is that you're the guide, and your job is to make your audience into the hero. Get them seeing themselves bigger than that they are. And I completely agree with them.
Yeah, that really resonates with me. I've told this story many times. I have a soft spot as a kid from the streets for young guys getting out of jail. And so I have, back when I lived in Portland years ago, I would go and give speeches, talks, really just interact with young men in halfway houses. So they're out of prison and they're adjusting to new life. They spend some time in these houses. And as I was telling my story and kind of giving them some background that you don't have to end up where they are, I always refer to myself as, look, I'm poor white trash. That's where I come from. And I embrace, because I am who I am in spite of where I come from, but also because of where I come from. And so in that arena, so many people push back on admitting where they are, where they come from, or how that might have impacted them. A lot of who I am comes from this tough beginning and the fact that I was poor white trash. Afterwards, one of the guys, he had spent 20 years, this guy's 20 years, he's an older guy, for heroin, at both addiction and was selling it, bringing it across country lines. This is from Mexico. A guy had a hell of a story. But what he said to me is, I've never heard anybody like you make it out of where we come from, and I've never heard anybody else call themselves poor white trash. So of all, that resonated with that one guy, maybe the rest of them. I didn't talk to the rest of them about it, but that one guy, he heard me say that, and to your point, I've never forgotten this story. It's been 10 years ago. He was like, that makes sense to me. Now I'm listening because you're being honest with me, and I can understand what you're talking about because you come from the same place, or I can understand what it is, the message that you're trying to deliver, because we have that thing in common.
Isn't that powerful, Jerry? Think about that. Maybe you don't make any money off of this, but you impacted that. I mean, the last book that I just wrote, this book is called Convicted. And this book, I wrote this, I'm donating this to every prison in America and around the world. And it's 52 stories about people that found Christ while they were in prison. And it's just meant as a story of hope to show people, hey, your story, as long as you're above ground, your story is still being written. I mean, that's the power of storytelling, Jerry. I mean, you had an impact on that guy. Like, that's what I love it when I speak and I have somebody say something like that. My first instinct is, man, I can get hit by a bus right now. I'm going to heaven. This is great. There's a reason for me being here. I mean, you speak for money. You and I are entrepreneurs. We believe in capitalism. That's great. But when you can actually have an impact and inspire somebody else to do something better for themselves, that's where the real gratification comes.
Yeah, and I in my consulting business, there are times, particularly with young entrepreneurs or young guys off the streets, that I find myself I just want to do it for free because in that attempt to try to help somebody get past where they are or move forward, I almost feel bad for taking money from them. I'm an unabashed capitalist, obviously, and have been for years. But yeah, there's still that reluctance. If I can give you some sort of good advice and it helped you in your life somehow, I don't know. It's my own hang up. I got to get over thinking that the value in that is lost if I charged you for it.
Take the money. I mean, on this book, I still sell the book. All the proceeds go to prison charities. So I can impact it that way. But I still take the money because you have a value, and so you should be paid for that value.
Right. Let me ask you about the 5 C's. Which one gets screwed up the most? So which one's missing if that communication falls flat? Is there one of those 5? I think clarity, connection, content, call to action, and close. Is there one of those that are more important that the other 4 aren't going to work unless that one is there, or do they all have equal importance?
They're all important. Obviously, the most important is always connecting. The first 5 minutes of your presentation are by far the most important because your audience is making a decision. Am I going to be present or am I going to be engaged? You want them engaged. And so, again, former teacher, everything I do either rhymes or it's alliterative. So in the first 5 minutes, you got to rap. You got to show that you're relatable. You have to demonstrate your authority, and you have to share your purpose. So relatable. Oh, I've had that exact same problem. I'm just like you. Authority. And I solved that problem. Purpose. And now I'm on a mission to help people just like you so you don't have to suffer the way I suffered. If you can do that in the first 5 minutes, you're going to have your audience paying attention to you, which is the most important thing. Probably the biggest mistake I see people make is in their call to action. The mistake is most people give multiple calls to action. So I was on a podcast earlier today, and the woman, she ended the podcast. She's like, I hope you enjoyed today's podcast. Make sure you like, subscribe, and give us a 5-star review. When we got off the air, I said, you just asked your audience to do 3 things. They're not going to do any of them. You got to be very clear on your call to action. The example I always say, again, teacher, choices confuse and cause you to lose. If you look at all of the major grocery store chains in America, Publix and Food Lion and Kroger and Safeway or whatever your major food chain is, none of them are the number 1 grocery store in America. The number 1 grocery store in America by volume is Trader Joe's. And the reason is when you go into one of these major chains looking for mustard, there's 38 different types of mustard. You go into Trader Joe's, there's one. It's called mustard. They made the choice for you. And so that's one of the big mistakes I see is the call to action. And, again, they're all important. By the way, whenever I talk about clients, I'm not giving you their real names. I believe in discretion. You can talk to my business partner, Coach Jimmy. He likes to blab about everybody we work with, but we're working with a pretty prestigious nutrition expert. I'll call her Dr. Kathy. And so Dr. Kathy, she has this 90-day diet program that she's selling for $19.97. And she hired us to help close more deals. And she was closing on the call to action. I'm like, wait a sec, you're making a big mistake. She's like, what do you mean? I'm like, you got to understand there's two types of people in your audience. I'm going to say it's the married couple. So the guy is Joe Friday. Joe Friday sits like this and he's like, how much is this going to cost? What do I got to do? How long does it take? And a very good presentation makes sure to address all of those questions for Joe Friday. But if you end on Joe Friday, you've ignored the wife, who's Julia Roberts. Julia Roberts, she doesn't care how much it costs. She just wants to feel good. I listen to Jerry's podcast because it's like my long lost brother. He makes me feel good. And so I asked Dr. Kathy, I said, well, what do you want your audience to do? She's like, I want them to buy my product. I'm like, yes, I know you want them to buy your product. What do you want them to do ultimately? It was back and forth for 5 minutes. And finally she said, well, I want them to understand they can't do it on their own. I'm like, oh. You need to hire an expert story. And she's like, what's that? I'm like, I'll give you an example. I'll leave you all with this. Many years ago, my wife and I had theater tickets. We were dressed to the nines, driving to the theater when we got a flat tire. My wife said, well, I'll call AAA and get a tow truck. I'm like, you don't have to call AAA. I'm a man. I can fix a flat tire. So I got out of the car, I opened up the trunk, I got the spare tire, and I got the pumper thing, and I got the big jack thingy, and I started trying to take out the nuts off of the tire, and 27 minutes later, I have grease all over my hands. I have not fixed this flat tire. I look up, my wife has her arms crossed, standing over me, shaking her head like I could have done so much better than this guy. Well, unbeknownst to me, she had called AAA. This tow truck shows up. And this 17-year-old punk hops out of the tow truck and proceeds to fix my flat tire in 3 minutes. I think there are times in life when all of us think we can do it on our own, but if you want to save time, you want to save money, you want to save a whole lot of headache and embarrassment, you hire an expert. And so what we've done is we've used a story as a metaphor to drive the audience to action. So now the audience is thinking, I've tried lots of diet programs before. Maybe what I need to do is use Dr. Kathy's program because she'll be with me the whole way. That's what an effective presentation is doing, is it's guiding you in a direction of this is what I want you to do.
That is a story I tell entrepreneurs all the time. I kind of have my same story. I'm not as aware of what I was doing as you are. But years ago, I was hired to help two brothers. They were upgrading Corvettes in California, and their business was outgrowing where they were. They had seen something I had done on the internet. They reached out to me. I had a conversation. They hired me, and they ultimately moved into a bigger building. And with my help, not only did they keep the old building, but they had to get another building because the overflow was so much. Anyway, their business did really well. About 2 years later, the younger brother, I got hired by the older brother, and the younger brother, in a meeting with the three of us, says to me, Jerry, just looking, we spend, I think, $550 an hour or whatever it was at the time for your help. And, that's really tough to swallow. This has been 2 years and the business is, just taken off like wildfire. And rather than get offended at it, I said to him, that's great. I understand that. But he said, what's the value in $550? This is even after the business had done so well. I didn't get mad at him. I just said, well, you can go back and kind of have my upbringing, and then you can start multiple businesses over the course of 30 years and fail and succeed and fight and crawl and succeed again and go through all of those things, learn all the lessons, be sued, and all the things that you have to deal with to grow the business. That brings me to the point where I can give you the advice to help you grow your business. Or you can pay me $550 an hour. And the look on his face immediately, it just didn't, he didn't think about it. Had I gotten mad and yelled at him for all these things I've done for you, I just didn't. I just said, you can go do that. And it made absolute sense to him. And I've told that story. It's kind of self-serving, but at the same time, many times, to try to encourage people to go out and find people to help them, just like what you should have done. You would have got done quicker. And again, life would have been much better for you if you hired that expert.
Absolutely right. That's a great story. Use it. It's part of your little arsenal now.
Yeah. Let's talk. So when you're doing a story, a lot of entrepreneurs, just like myself, we have these, incredible experiences. Everybody does. Entrepreneurship is so difficult that we talked about. And they struggle to turn the story into a sale because it feels so contrived almost, right? So how do people share that expertise inside of the story that builds trust without kind of feeling like we're trying to sell something, off on the side, kind of with that salesy feeling?
That's a good question, Jerry. I like that question. So I think this is probably one of the things that separates Jimmy and me from a lot of these supposed speaking coaches that you see out there. I've watched them. I've worked with some of these people. And what they always say is, to really build rapport with your audience, you have to talk about the darkest moment of your life. And there's 3 reasons why I refuse to do that. First of all, the world just survived a global pandemic. Everybody's had a lot of bad stuff happen to them. I don't think we need more sad stories. I think we need more stories of hope. Second of all, what Coach Jimmy and I are doing is we're teaching you how to create what we call your well-crafted story. When I covered the president, he would have called it his stump speech. You can call it peanut butter and jelly. It doesn't matter what you call it. This is a presentation that you're going to deliver again and again. It's going to be so automatic in your head. It's going to be like the Lord's Prayer or the Pledge of Allegiance. You're not going to have to think about it. Do you really want to relive the worst moment of your life again and again? I mean, I have a friend, his daughter was killed in a school shooting. He's shared that story now over 1,000 times on stage. I have no idea how he does that. You have to be a lot stronger than me to talk about the worst day of your life. And third, and this is where people get angry with me, I have one objective when I'm on stage. I want you to leave feeling better than when you came in. I want you laughing, smiling, happy. I think there's something admirable about that as an objective. I believe these people that tell the same sad story again and again, by the 20th time they're telling that story, now those are crocodile tears, and now they're going to be manipulative. And I'm not saying it's not an effective sales tactic. It's actually a very effective sales tactic. But I personally, Jerry, choose not to manipulate my people from the stage. I don't want to have to take a shower after I get off stage because I just manipulated everybody. There's ethical ways to get people to want to do business with you. Answering your question more directly, I always believe in the power of humor over the power of I'm a pleasure over pain. Everybody's going to tell you pain. I understand that, and there's a place for pain in your presentations. I usually think it's just like humor. It's most effective when it's self-inflicted, when you're not getting the audience freaking out. You're talking about your own stumbling points. I like to really make fun of myself, and I build a lot of rapport that way. Plus, I talk about this in the content portion of a presentation. I work with people who are like, I don't want to sound salesy. I'm like, here's my strategy. Stop selling. Serve. I want you to look at your audience like they are dying and you have the antidote. And if they don't get your antidote, they will die. And when you look at it from that point of view, let's serve them. You know what? Whether a person decides to do business with you or not, they have just given you one of their most precious assets, their time. You have a responsibility to help them. And so here's interesting. So this is professor in me. I look at research, so it's interesting. Research shows that people remember the beginning of your talk, the end of your talk. They don't remember anything in between. Translation, oh my gosh, the bun's more important than the burger. They don't care what you teach. It's all about the connection. But what they do remember is, are you helpful? So when I first started speaking, Jerry, one of my mentors, he's no longer with us, is a guy by the name of Jim Trelease. And what Jim did is he taught parents how to read aloud to their kids. And in the middle of his presentation, he'd be like, I'm going to teach you all something right now. This will save your life someday. If you ever lock yourself out of your car, as long as you have your cell phone, call up your spouse and have your spouse put the keys next to the phone. You put your phone next to the car door, it'll unlock the car door. Jerry, I've tried this from 3,000 miles away and it works. I had a Toyota Corolla. It probably doesn't work on a Tesla, but the older cars, it works because I didn't know that the keys have some kind of like little song or something it's playing. So here's the teaching point. This has nothing to do with his presentation. And I've seen it where people would come up to him after a presentation. Oh my gosh, Jim, I saw you several years ago. I wanted to tell you, I locked myself out of my car and I tried, and that worked. You saved my life. I've been telling every school they should book you. Whoa, has nothing. But this is interesting. This is all the credibility. You and I have been talking about these shysters, the people all trying, there's people out there, they'll do anything. But when you actually find a person that you can trust, that's actually shown you, hey, I'm here to help you. I mean, I was working with a woman that works with people with clinical depression, and she was trying to figure out, well, how can I help my audience? I said, well, why don't you tell everybody, because they all have pens. Everybody take a pen, bite down on it. Did you know when you bite down on a pen, it actually triggers your brain to think that you're smiling, and your brain actually produces the same amount of endorphins as if you actually were smiling. So there's actually a physiological way to trick your brain into happiness. She uses it and audiences love it now. So that's what you're trying to do is how can I be, in my audiences, I always, if I'm talking to teachers about how to get kids reading or whatever, I'll be like, most people, they waste their time on these cell phones on social media. But this is actually a very powerful tool if used in the right way. I set calendar reminders to learn things all the time. So I'm a bad Christian. I'm always trying to learn different scripture. And so right now, every day at 4:29, I'm getting Ephesians 4:29, which is whatever you do, work at it. I'm practicing it. I read the book. I read the book, and this is what I do. I practice these things. I had read the book Dune, and so every day at 9:11, there's a thing called the Litany Against Fear, and I really liked it, so I'm trying to learn that. So I must not fear. Fear is the mind killer. Fear is the little death that turns to total obliteration. I'm learning that one too. I got married on December 20th, so every day at 12:20, I have an alert to tell my wife that I love her. What I'm doing. I'm teaching the audience. How do you take something that all of you have and make it so it works for you? And so that's, I apologize, Jerry. I don't even remember the original question.
No, that's good. And we were talking about kind of, you had said about leaving, what kind of impression do you leave? Do you have everybody crying, and what do you want to talk about? You want to talk about positive things or negative things? If you got on 1,000 stages, I was in the sauna of all things at the gym. About 15 other dudes were in there, and we're having a conversation about movies. And I said that I want the movies that they were saying that they really liked were all these movies. They're mostly older than 10 years ago, and all of them at the end, the hero won. And I said, I want the story. I don't want to see a movie where the hero dies at the end. I don't want to see that, right? I just don't want to. And I don't care how artistic it makes me or how it's going to expand my horizons and all the rest of that. I don't mind seeing the hero get tortured. I don't mind people around the hero dying. But at the end, I want to see that hero win. And I walk out of that movie feeling better about myself and what I just saw. If the hero dies, I'm probably going to give that movie a bad rating because who in the hell kills the hero at the end? I think in a way, that's what resonated with me when you said that about giving a speech. Do you want them crying at the end, or do you want them to feel inspired?
Yeah, look at the movie Monsters, Inc. Monsters, Inc. is all about the way they produce powers, getting the kids frightened all the time. And then all of a sudden they discover that laughter is actually more powerful than frightening people. Yeah. I'd much rather get people. People are way too uptight nowadays. We need to laugh a lot more. I'm just like you. That's why I watch American movies and not French movies, is I know in the middle of the American movie, if Julia Roberts dies, they'll resuscitate her and she'll be alive at the end. If she gets shot in a French movie, I'll turn to my wife and I think she's dead. This is a bummer. That stinks.
She's not coming back. Let me ask you one last question here. The difference between, it's one thing to get an applause, I think, and it's another thing to get results. Mm-hmm. Is there a difference in how the message or the story or the speech is given that you can, I guess, get both, but really if you're looking for what is results, and the results may be you trying to sell something, the result might be just a good reaction, and maybe the applause is the result, although I think some people will clap just respectfully. Is there something you look for there, or is there even a difference there?
Well, personally, I've never once gone to a bank to cash a check for speaking, and the bank teller asked me, did they applaud you? I'm looking for my result.
Right.
It's all about result. Again, it was another event. I was feeling facetious, and the first two speakers were thought leaders, and I got up on stage. I'm like, raise your hand if you need another thought. I'm not a thought leader. I'm a results leader. I believe in the result. Mm-hmm. And it's all fine and good if you're getting applause. I want you to get applause. And you're right. People will applaud. That's why I've never been a big fan of applause anyway, because people are just going to do it out of a habit.
Right.
The way we're measuring your effectiveness is how, I worked with a guy 3 months ago, Richard. He's a financial planner. And so the way he gets clients was twice a week. He has these presentations at steakhouses for about 15 couples in their 50s. They're looking to retire. And his call to action is to get them to book an appointment with him so that hopefully he can manage their finances. And so I said, okay, let's look at your numbers. So he got 15 couples at this, and out of the 15 couples, 6 of them were booking that appointment. And out of the 6 couples that booked the appointment, one couple would invest their funds, which were at least $500,000 with Richard. And so Richard used to start off his presentation, my name is Richard. I've been in the business for 30 years. I've made my clients over $1 billion. I've worked with this famous person, like, time out, Richard. What are the 3 most important elements of real estate? Location, location, location. It's all right to brag, but you're doing it in the wrong part of your presentation. We need to connect. Mm-hmm. And so we changed his opening. And so his opening now, he talks about his very first client that he got 30 years ago. And it's basically this comedy of errors, Jerry, where I have no idea why this person invested money with him. He made every mistake in the book, but he noticed it immediately. He said, Danny, you're a genius. I immediately saw the guy that's usually doing this with his arms crossed. Now he's patting his knee because he's laughing so hard. And after the first presentation of those 15 couples, 12 of them booked the appointment with him, and 7 of them managed their money with him. That's what I'm looking for in the result. Now, if I kept on, I'm on Richard on the top. I'm like, I'm waiting to get us all 15. I want all 15 booking that appointment. Right. I want all 15 investing with you. But this is a manageable. You got to know your numbers. You can say, I got a standing ovation. Well, that's not a measurement. I'm looking for a measurement. Let's measure your. And again, you don't have to measure it based on a paid offer. It can be an unpaid offer. So when I'm working with a politician, if you won the election, well, that was the result. You wanted to get the most votes. If you're a podcaster and you have this many subscribers, let's see after this podcast how many subscribers you get, or how much engagement you're getting. Let's actually look at numbers. I mean, applause is great, but it's not really meaningful. I'm looking for an actual end result.
Great answer. Great answer. In the minute I got left with you, I'm going to do a speed round real quick, and I want you to give me a first thing that comes to mind.
Right.
Number 1, the biggest mistake people make when they're sharing their story.
Bragging.
I'm sorry?
Bragging.
Very good. A sign a leader's message is too complicated.
If they can't condense it into a sentence.
The fastest way to improve communication without adding more content.
Practice.
Oh, good. What most people misunderstand about calls to action?
There should only be one. Think of Highlander. There can be only one.
There could be only Highlander, one of my favorite movies. And number 5, the last question. The one question every speaker or leader, business owner, should ask before opening their mouth.
What do I want my audience to do?
Perfect. Danny, this, again, I always know, I say this on almost every podcast. The guests are so good, and the good conversations just go by too quick. That is our hour, my friend, and I have appreciated every second of it. Very, very informative. Let's tell everybody how they can get a hold of you. Obviously, you know what you're talking about. And if there are anybody, you know what? In fact, I know that there's customers out there, because as entrepreneurs, and I know hundreds of them, we talk about these sorts of things all of the time, especially getting your story out. How do people get a hold of you?
Well, as a thank you to you, Jerry, and the audience for having to bear with me, I wanted to give everybody a freebie. So if you go to freestoryguide.com, guide like a tour guide, freestoryguide.com, I'm going to give everybody their own complimentary, well-crafted story blueprint. What this is the actual process that Coach Jimmy and I take our clients through to help you create your well-crafted story. What this does for you is it takes the guesswork out of where do I put this story and why am I putting it here? And what this means for you is you now have a system that can convert audiences into actual clients. You get that at freestoryguide.com. And Jerry, this was delightful. Whenever you need anything, I'm just a phone call away, my friend.
Danny, I appreciate it. Thank you.